With the latest episode released, the already intriguing mysteries surrounding the Digital Circus's lore have expanded in both size and scope. Today we've decided to be fair to all the main cast members, so these are some of our personal favorite theories about every amazing Digital Circus character. We'll be talking about 2 to 3 speculations about each of the ensemble cast, starting with Pomni. Pomni's seemingly inevitable breakdown. We've discussed it a few times already, but yeah, we're not sure Pomni's doing so hot. Multiple scenes in the first and second episodes are hinting at her mental state quickly slipping away from her. It's probably the most memed aspect of the series, and episode 2 takes it in an even less humorous way when Gummigoo is sent back to his homeworld, wording it like that because we absolutely refuse to believe that he died. She has a fit of borderline maniacal laughter that we feel can only be aptly described as a stress-induced breakdown. Basically, we're wondering how this whole series is going to affect Pomni's mental health as a whole. The first episode gave off the vibe that this whole series is going to basically be Pomni going insane, a Netflix original series, but then episode 2 hit us. In contrast to the pilot's final scene, episode 2 ends with Pomni smiling sincerely as her new friends, or at least involuntary peers, recount their memories of the now abstracted Kaufmo. It seems as though Pomni's friendships are going to be what keeps her tethered to reality, at least for the time being. So we're starting off with a pretty positive prediction. Pomni's sanity is going to be intact longer than anyone expected, so long as she has some grip on reality. Now, if it turns out that any of the other guests are secretly NPCs, well, have fun in the psych ward, Pomni. We'll be praying for you. Pomni's speculative origin story. Since this video is all about character-centric theories, we thought we'd go into a possible backstory section for the circus guests, starting of course with Pomni. While we still like our previous prediction that Pomni was a small streamer looking for a big break, we've decided to offer an alternative story that's just as likely and fitting for her personality. So grab some popcorn and give yourself the digital sensation of eating without any actual nourishment, and get ready for the Wicked Binge pure speculation Pomni backstory, subject to be anywhere from 1 to 100% debunked within a few years. At the age of 22, Pomni, or whatever her human name is, graduated from college with a degree in game design. Now at the age of 25, she works for moderate pay at a game company but hasn't found fulfillment through it. She dreamt of making her own games and being able to share her passion for the craft with others, but sadly she's just been stagnant for the last few years. At this point really, Pomni just wants to find some kind of fulfillment in life. She's in that weird phase where she can do a lot of things, but she's paralyzed, too fearful to do one thing and too uncertain to do another. It all came to a head in 2020 when a certain non-specific international emergency forced people to stay indoors. Her employer, C&A, had plenty of failed projects. Some didn't sell well, others aged poorly, and others still were obsolete. But one in particular caught Pomni's eye, a PC game complete with a VR headset, one that the company deemed as strictly off-limits for employees to look at, let alone touch, without the manager's permission. She'd heard urban legends about this one. Could this be the rumored amazing Digital Circus game, a long-cancelled project from the company, and part of the reason she wanted to work for it in the first place? Pomni was fed up of being alone, fed up of being afraid, and fed up of missing out on opportunities. She'd always wanted to learn more about this absolute mystery of a game, and here she was, in the office after hours with nobody to stop her. Sure, it was dangerous and scary, but was she really going to give up what she wanted again? There was no reason to question any further. She put on that headset and tragically was proven right to be skeptical. What did you guys think? I guess we can fully judge whenever we learn a bit more about Pomni, so let's move on to her new pal, Gummigoo. Is Gummigoo dead? When Cain Thanos'd Gummigoo out of the circus, it was simultaneously the most predictable thing that could have happened and the most jaw-droppingly painful twist imaginable. While this scene has been labeled as Gummigoo's death, we don't think it's that black and white. First of all, look, we all love Gummigoo, but the fact is that he's an NPC, and as such, he's no more alive than any other NPC in a video game. But second of all, Gummigoo probably isn't dead in the virtual sense either. Cain probably just transported him back to his homeworld, where a fudge monster was currently eating all the citizens. You know what? Maybe he just sent him to the testing room to wait for orders, or he cast the fudge monster away. It's cool because either way, Cain probably erased Gummigoo's memories of the circus, Pomni, and the realities of their world. Man, does anyone else forget this is an existential horror sometimes? Gummigoo's big picture role? Well, let's make things more positive by speculating how Gummigoo just might make a return. First of all, Ragatha said that Cain often reuses NPCs, so it's not unlikely that Gummigoo would be one of those veterans, especially since he's the first one to have any significant development. But why bring him back? Would it just be another emotional blow because he's forgotten about Pomni? Perhaps, but we have another theory. Hear us out. Cain is a chaotic, erratic character, and it stands to reason that he's as capable of error as anyone else, whether human or AI. So what if, in his haste to teleport Gummigoo away, not to mention his clear discomfort at the potential of confusing NPCs and human characters, he forgot to erase Gummigoo's memories? This would be a huge plot twist, and it could act as a catalyst to bring him back as a major protagonist. Knowing that he's an NPC, Gummigoo could slowly but surely rally other NPCs, starting with his bandit friends back in the Candy Kingdom, to escape their virtual worlds into the real world, helping Pomni and the gang along the way too.
Well, you don't suppose my mates here could take this one back to the village, could they?
That all depends on Kane forgetting a pretty crucial part of his job, but, well, for Gummigoo's sake, we're gonna have to pray on his downfall just this once. Next is the lean, mean purple machine, Jax. Jax's redemption arc? As it often goes when a series has a total jerk in its ensemble cast, there are plenty of fans who are desperate to find a single shred of goodwill within them. Admittedly, more often than not, said jerks are usually more than just surface-level bullies by the time they get some character development, like Suzy from Deltarune or Bakugo from My Hero Academia. But key term, character development. It takes time for that development to show itself, be it one chapter or hundreds, and no matter how many admittedly well-made videos there are speculating that Jax is actually a good guy for being so mean to distract his buddies from abstracting,
Jax is actually a good guy.
it doesn't change the fact that Gooseworks has gone on record saying there is absolutely nothing heroic about Jax and straight up confirmed that nobody likes him. And in the second episode, he goes from kind of a jerk to full-blown psychopath, willing to sacrifice or manipulate his friends to either save his own hide or just get a good laugh. So the question is whether or not Jax will see any character development, or more accurately, what kind.
You have no idea.
To his credit, he's at least shown hints of having something adjacent to a moral compass. While he refused to join Kaufmo's funeral, he did briefly look sad before walking away. It's possible that his cynicism is the only way he can cope with being stuck in the circus. Or maybe he's just a full-on psychopath and doesn't care what happens to anyone, including himself, as long as he gets to watch debatably funny things happen to people. But it's more likely somewhere in between those two. He's not an outright sadist, he just doesn't see the circus as something to take seriously. It could be that Jax is having trouble accepting that these are, in fact, real people and that he is, in fact, not dreaming.
Thank goodness this is all a dream, right, Pomni?
In short, with a glowing review from his own creator like, nobody likes Jax, we assume that he's gonna remain a jerk.
Cool.
But perhaps a more sympathetic one. He is only 22, apparently, which makes him tied with Zooble as the youngest of the bunch. Jax is the creator? One semi-popular theory is that Jax is the straight-up creator of the game and just likes to screw around with his victims. While this isn't an impossible theory, it is an unlikely one. Like one comment suggests, if Jax had full control over the game, he'd be causing even more chaos than he already does. And in the second episode, he's disappointed at his adventure's lack of carnage.
Well, maybe there will be blood, death, and violence in the next adventure.
If he were the creator, he'd surely be able to remedy that without any outside interference. Also, again, Jax is only 22. While that doesn't make it impossible for him to be the headmaster of this game, it's a lot less likely for somebody so young. Jax? More like Hacks. We'd take some elements of this one and say that Jax is a hacker, evidenced by the fact that, in his own words, he has keys to everything. So here's his little speculative origin story. A good for nothing, or good for very little at least, delinquent, Jax had little to really live for. His mother passed when he was young, the victim of a violent criminal, and it led to poor Jax going from house to house with his con-man father. Now, Jax's dad wasn't the warm and sentimental type, but he had some decent practical advice to give, albeit unethical. If it makes money, do it. If it makes you feel good, do it. Ethics be damned, kid. From his experience, the world itself stepped on decent people, so Jax took this advice to heart, engaging in all sorts of hedonistic activities. Pulling pranks, shoplifting, and causing a ruckus in general were his bread and butter. But his favorite pastime was hacking. Being where he wasn't needed or wanted, even digitally, gave him just the thrill he needed to not go completely off the walls. As fun as hacking was for Jax, though, it had the authorities rather suspicious of him. Faster than a jackrabbit, he escaped from one unwelcoming job to another until he was finally commissioned by a sketchy executive to test what they thought was a copy of a highly elusive game. With all the broken assets he could access, it would sell for millions, and you'd best believe Jax would be getting a good cut of it. Thinking back on his dad's advice, he figured, what's the worst that could happen? On the subject of good people getting stepped on, we've now got to talk about the de facto mom of the friend group, Ragatha. One of you will betray me, and it's probably Ragatha. Alright, this is one of the absolute biggest stretches we're talking about today. In the ending scene of the pilot episode, the gang sits at a table eating together, a scene many have likened to the iconic Last Supper painting of Jesus and his disciples. Note in both of these scenes who is on the left and who's in the middle. Pomni and Jesus are in the middle, and Ragatha and Judas Iscariot are on the left sides of their respective settings, Judas being the one who betrays Jesus, for those unaware. Some have speculated that this might be suggesting that Ragatha is going to betray Pomni, but while this would be a really cool hint of foreshadowing, she currently hasn't done anything even somewhat suspicious. So we're gonna dismiss this one for now, but we'll keep it in the back of our minds just in case. to protect the innocent. Last time around, we brought up the idea that Ragatha was a teacher, and perhaps she ended up in the game on one of her field trips. Let's go deeper into that theory, shall we? Ragatha was once the much-loved teacher of a 5th grade class. She loved to read, sing, write, and most of all, she loved teaching and bonding with all of her students. So after a field trip, when the one student seemed less upbeat than usual, she immediately grew concerned. This particular student was a bit of a scamp. He'd neglected his teacher's instructions to not touch anything at the old game studio, putting on a strange headset for just a few seconds before she caught him. Since that day, he seemed different, and psychologists, counselors, and parents alike couldn't pinpoint the problem. Concerned for her student, Ragatha naturally had to see what game he'd experienced. Only then could she actually help him out. Speaking of needing help, we're gonna need some to figure out what the heck is up with Zooble. What the heck is that design? All of the Digital Circus characters have weird designs, but Zooble is a whole new level of abstract. While it hasn't been outright stated, most people speculate that the characters' avatars are based on some aspects of who they were, whether through personality or lifestyle. Zooble is incredibly abstract, is impatient with those who mess with her designs, and would prefer to be left alone rather than join on any adventures.
Yeah, no.
For a character with so little screen time, it still makes you wonder just what determined this strange design. She's an artist. Like, seriously, we're not gambling apologists at Wicked Binge, but we bet money on this. The abstract designs, the clear perfectionism, just look at her in the Meet the Gang animation on Glitch's channel. If that doesn't scream frustrated artist, we don't know what does. An artist scorned. And a lack of screen time won't stop us from speculating on her potential past, so let's come up with something for our favorite abstract Lego set. A quiet art student, Zooble's pieces were rarely appreciated for what they were, but not in the way you might think. Even though others praised her art, she was never quite satisfied with it. Her self-doubt eventually led into her turning in assignments late, which her professors had very little patience for. This led to her beginning to fail classes, which in turn led to some rough bouts of depression. Thankfully, there was one particular teacher who took pity on Zooble. He sent some of Zooble's art to a game company that was requesting art for games, and despite her initial rage, she was ecstatic to see them not only compliment her work, but critique it. Finally, someone helps her improve. She was accepted for a job designing characters and environments for the upcoming release of an immersive VR video game. By the time she'd graduated, talks of the game were already underway, her art being used in advertisements, but those higher-ups never got back to her about payment. Zooble wasn't one to take this lightly, so she took what little she had to go down to the company herself, and in an effort to appease her, they allowed her to try out the game early, assuring her that they'd be paying her right after. Might as well pass the time somehow, right? Now it's time to talk about Gangle, which means it's also time to talk about... What do you mean, figurine thing? Okay, we couldn't avoid it forever. So, remember in that one merch commercial from a few months back where Kane described the figures of him and Pomni as figurines well-adjusted people can be normal and responsible with? Well, look, we've had to pray for enough forgiveness today, so if the image of a figurine in a jar doesn't give you any less than pure thoughts, we'd commend your innocence. That said, when Jax threatens to tell Ragatha about Gangle's figurine thing, the latter's reaction, on top of the series' emphasis on internet meme humor, indicates that Gangle has a figure of Ragatha which she does some questionable things with. Or alternatively, maybe Gangle has a voodoo doll of Ragatha and secretly hates her for some inexplicable reason. The world may never know. And you know what? Maybe that's just fine. Oh, and Jax, since you're so determined to push poor Gangle around, just know they're making a figure of you too. Your days are freaking numbered. What if Gangle lost both masks? Alright, this one's more of a shower thought than anything, but it's already been a running gag that Gangle loses her happy mask in every episode so far.
My comedy mask is broken again.
Obviously, this makes her very despondent, but in episode 2, when Jax threatens her about the whole figurine thing, we see that she is capable of smiling and laughing even without the mask. So what happens when she has no mask? Well, it's probably nothing too deep. We'd imagine it would just mean she can't talk without the mask, but is still able to express herself through other means. Or, hear us out, what if there's a secret third mask? Jax pushes her around one time too many and she pulls out the fabled anger mask? Only time will tell. Gangle the theater kid. Adult? Yep, it's that time again. Let's do some more speculating about these characters' varying levels of emotional turmoil. Ah, poor Gangle. The woman just wanted to entertain audiences as an actress. Was that so wrong? Not in the least, but unfortunately, she just didn't have the skill to fully realize that dream. College after college, play after play rejected her. The reasoning? Simple. Gangle lacked composure on stage. She could hardly keep from laughing during sad scenes and could hardly keep from crying during happy ones. Was it anxiety? Some deep-rooted trauma? Who's to say? Even Gangle's therapist couldn't find out the issue. issue. They could, however, offer some coping mechanisms. Maybe, for instance, it would help to escape reality once in a while, say through a book. If that wasn't engaging enough, maybe a movie or a video game. Gosh, if only there was some way to unwind by entering a video game. Well, as it turns out, many have found the mysterious, amazing digital circus game to be almost entirely pacifying. But for someone as unstable as Gangle, that would surely be a good thing. It wouldn't hurt to try, at least. Now, before we get to our beloved, morally questionable host, it's time to talk about the last of the main circus gang, Kinger. Is Kinger the lead developer? It seems basically inevitable that Kinger is, at the very least, involved in the production of the game. The insect collection to bug tester pipeline is real indeed, but what if we take that theory a step further? Let's say that Kinger is the head honcho of the game itself. He does seem to know more than he lets on about the game and the people therein.
So what? I can still be hungry.
Well, not really, because we don't need to eat, drink, or sleep in this digital world.
He knows the ins and outs of eating in the digital world, and he expresses sympathy towards Pomni in episode 2 because he remembers when Ragatha 2 was having trouble adjusting to life in the circus. Any way you slice it, Kinger seems to be the most knowledgeable of the gang. Maybe being someone in charge of the game itself, Kinger is able to keep from abstracting for longer than some other guests. That would explain how he's kept from abstracting, despite clearly being on the cusp of losing his mind and even physically glitching sometimes. It could even be that Kinger knows some specific way to keep from abstracting, but given his loss of sanity, he can't communicate it to others properly. Either way, there's definitely more going on with Kinger than we know so far. What's the deal with Queenie? Exhibit B, his presumably wife, Queenie. While she's only been seen in passing, and the only official information we have on her is this crossed out picture of her, and Gooseworks' confirmation that her name is Queenie instead of Queener, good call. The community has already made some reasonable speculations about her. She's probably Kinger's wife, became abstracted at some point, and possibly even worked alongside Kinger in developing the game. Let's look at the functions of their respective pieces in chess. The king piece is the end goal, essentially. Its movement is limited, but when it's captured, the game is over, and its captor is the winning team of the game. The queen, on the other hand, is the most important piece for offensive play, able to move any amount of spaces in all 8 possible directions. If we apply these to the respective characters, we could conclude that Kinger was the head developer, as we suggested earlier, and his insect collection is actually him trying to locate the cause of abstraction, a goal he's slowly lost sight of over time. Kinger's probably tragic backstory. The abstraction of Queenie probably hit Kinger pretty hard, likely the main reason for his current mental state. So with that, it's time for the 6th and final speculative origin story, and it's definitely the saddest, so grab some tissue. When work and player intertwined, isn't that the dream? Kinger would likely agree. A tech expert with big dreams, he's been working at a company with heavy emphasis on innovation for years. At last, they've given him the chance to lead his own project, an immersive virtual reality video game where literally anything can happen. Thankfully, he wouldn't be doing this alone. His dear wife Queenie was supporting him along the way, even helping test the game for bugs and glitches. She would tell him strange stories about the NPCs, AIs, and other aspects of his game, much to his delight. But one day, things changed. Queenie came out of the game a different person. She spoke very little, and she did even less. Kinger, gravely concerned, rushed into the game to find out what had happened, and to his horror, discovered that the eccentric ringmaster Kane had already buried several testers who had abstracted. Partly overwhelmed by his newfound responsibility, Kinger slowly lost his grip on reality. Over time, he forgot why he was even there, but when he saw that crossed-out portrait of a chess piece, much like himself, something in his heart stirred, ever so slightly. Alright, now let's get back to the fun stuff, baby! We've only got 2 characters left, and we saved the best for last. Now it's time for Kane. Kane has probably killed people. Oh, okay, we're getting right back into the morbid stuff, huh? Okay. Well, look, we won't sugarcoat it. When Kane snapped Gummigoo away, he justified it out of concern and horror over what could happen if he were to start confusing who was human and who was an NPC. The look on his face and sudden change of tone implies that Kane knows exactly what would happen, and that he's probably ended at least one other character as a result.
Well, I'm gonna go drink water. It's been a while since I've done that.
I mean, think about it. We know from the first episode where Kane kept trying to make an exit for the circus gang that he'll do just about anything to keep them happy and entertained. If Gummigoo being a new cast member would have been safe for everyone, he would have done it, so there's definitely a darker side to the circus Kane is protecting the others from. We still believe in you, buddy. On that note, Kane's redemption and freedom. While Kane is an AI more advanced than anything we have IRL, at least we hope he is, it's quite telling that he seems to have vivid vivid emotional reactions and fears. It's possible for Kane to make mistakes, interact independently with the cast members, and as we saw earlier, feel genuine horror over what he's done in the past. We're going to play around with the idea that Kane might just be slowly gaining sentience in a more human sense, and we have one intriguing idea as to how this might go.
Not even I know what's out there.
We already talked about how Kinger is losing his mind in the circus, likely due to overwhelming responsibility and despair over wanting to save his life from abstraction by any means. But what if that's not the cause? What if, say, someone is taking on that burden for Kinger? Someone whose direct job it is to keep the circus members entertained so they don't go insane. That's right, Kinger is not going crazy out of too much time in the circus, but rather because Kane took just enough of his memories upon himself to save him, at the cost of making Kane more self-aware than he was ever meant to be. A stretch? Maybe? Okay, definitely, but if by some miracle this is even remotely accurate, we reserve our right to say we told you so. And for the grand finale, we have the soapy sidekick himself, Bubble. Bubble is the main villain. Okay, this theory is like 80% joking, but there's still that 20% that feels like it's a vague possibility, so hear us out. Bubble is a goofball, a silly little guy even. Despite being an AI like Kane, he does his own thing all the time, whether it's licking up Pomni's vomit, ew, or somehow enjoying the sensation of being popped repeatedly.
You parasites!
The really interesting thing about Bubble, however, is that he seems to be completely unaffected by anything going on in the circus. Cursing, for instance, when Pomni or anyone else swears, it's censored out with wacky cartoon sound effects and censor bars. When Bubble swears, it's simply bleeped out, to the point where even Kane is horrified.
Bubble, you can't say that.
No matter how many times he's popped, Bubble can always return as quickly as he disappears, indicating that Bubble is his own entity entirely. This could lead to a number of possibilities. Maybe, for instance, Bubble is a virus that invaded the computer, perhaps from a rival company. Or maybe Bubble is an AI, but somehow gained sentience before Kane, and the latter is trying desperately to stop his reign of terror. But there's one question we have to answer more crucially than any other. What did Bubble say? Alright, first off, props to Glitch, because this is the hardest I've laughed at a YouTube video in a while.
Sounds.
But as for what Bubble likely said, even Kane was offended. This implies that it's something Kane would understand to be offensive, and yet something the censors didn't pick up, unless our theory about Bubble being immune to censorship is true. Our theory for this one? Bubble said slurs. Like, a lot of slurs, but they were all made up. One YouTube commenter suggests that Bubble came up with slurs for candy people in that very moment, and that doesn't seem too far-fetched, honestly. Alternatively, maybe he was hitting on Kane, and the latter knows it can never be. Ah, forbidden love. So sweet, yet so bitter.